Yeah, 18 ready to roll now. Tom Bevan, co-founder and editor of Real Clear Politics. Jeannie Zaino, professor of political science at Anna College and senior advisor at Applied Technomics. And Lisa Booth, senior fellow, Independent Women's Voice and a Fox News contributor. Hello to you three.
Morning, guys.
All right, size it up. Orlando, Florida. Here we go. Re-election campaign begins tonight.
Officially, unofficially, he's been campaigning since he took office. This is his 7th rally in Florida, but just states the case. Florida is critical to the president's reelection. He knows that. The Democrats know that. And look, those pictures are amazing. Trump is uniquely polarizing. He fires up his people. He fires up Democrats. And so it's going to be a battle royale, certainly in the state of Florida, but elsewhere across the country.
It's amazing when you look at some of those rural and suburban communities. We were just talking about to Michael Waltz about it, that made the difference between Obama and the Clinton campaign down in Florida. And certainly we're going to watch that play out today.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, we're going to see Florida, Michigan, Pennsylvania. There's about 5 to 7 key states that the president is going to be really pushing for. And my question is he going to try to reach out? And I don't think so, to those educated women that seem to have abandoned him to a certain extent in the suburbs, or is he going to double down? And I think we are seeing signs that there's going to be a doubling down, and Democrats have to be careful because he can still win the Electoral College like he did in 16, doubling down.
Lisa, I know you love to crunch numbers. Give me a moment for this. Come on over here, Jimmy. The I-4 corridor is something we talk about every 4 years, and this is really where you win and lose national campaigns. It's certainly where you win and lose in states like Florida. Orlando, right here along the I-4 corridor, Tampa to Southwest, Daytona Beach in the Northeast. Lisa, your Democratic voters for the most part, they live in the southeastern part of the state. Your Republican voters up in the Panhandle. And that's why, Lisa, he goes to Orlando today.
Well, absolutely. And also, as Jeannie pointed out, President Trump does need to win over some of those suburban voters again this cycle. Although I wouldn't take too much emphasis from the 2018 election. As all of us know who follow campaigns and election cycles, the pendulum swings back and forth, right? And also, you look at the fact President Obama and President Trump had the same approval ratings and exit pollings for their first midterm elections. President Obama lost 63 seats in the House. President Trump lost 41. I was at the NRCC in the 2010 election cycle. Obviously, he's in Florida because there's 29 electoral college votes at stake in the state. It's absolutely pivotal for him winning re-election in 2020. But I would think about it this way as well. So President Trump won in 2016 without basically any campaign apparatus behind him, without spending about half as amount of money as Hillary Clinton did. As Tom pointed out, they've been building a data operation and building a campaign infrastructure for the past 2 years. So if President Trump could win in 2016 without virtually any support, and then now he's coming in with $82 million in the bank collectively between the RNC and his campaign, as well as a sophisticated operation behind him, I would be a little bit worried if you're the Democrats.
Jeannie, Don Jr. penned an op-ed. It's published on FoxNews.com, getting a lot of attention this morning on the 2020 election cycle. He says will feature, if anything, even starker contrast for the future of this country than 2016's once-in-a-generation upset did. He writes, "My father and his re-election campaign are all that stand between the prosperous, faithful, and peaceful America of the Trump economic boom and the revenge-hungry far-left extremist party of the resistance," writes Donald Trump Jr.
And I think he is absolutely right to point to the economy. The biggest problem for the president is if there is a worldwide economic slowdown as we move into 2020. If the economy remains strong, I agree with Lisa, it is a real danger sign. Democrats cannot underestimate the fact that the president can win again if the economy remains strong. And that's why these tariffs in the Midwest and the impact on the farmers is so important to him.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, it's the campaign itself is going to be about, it ultimately comes down to a binary choice, right? Between Trump and who's the alternative.
This is the point.
Right. So these polls that are out right now asking general election questions are basically meaningless because it's like asking someone, well, do you want chocolate ice cream or one of these 17 other flavors? And some of them you may like and some of them you may hate.
23 other flavors.
Yeah, exactly. and so,
just to pick up on that, Tom, Karl Rove was talking about that. And the more you hear about the headlines from the far left, the more attention they get. And the further they drag the Democratic caucus in the House away from any sort of message or agenda as to what they would do for America. Here's Rove on that from last night with Hannity.
The bigger the role that AOC plays inside the Democratic presidential primary process, the more left-wing it goes and the better the president's chances for re-election are. If anybody thinks that what is going to sell in a hip district in New York that's gentrifying is going to sell in flyover country, they're kidding themselves.
We just did this segment last hour. She's talking about concentration camps on the U.S. border. Our men and women on the Border Patrol who are working 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, they're well overloaded. Congress isn't doing squat to help them. And to compare them to Nazis working concentration camps in Germany in the 1940s, it's appalling. But she's the one who gets those headlines and drags that message that I just mentioned further away from them.
But that's where the party's already gone. And we've saw that with Joe Biden, his capitulation on the Hyde Amendment, and he was absolutely capitulated to the left's demands. He abandoned a policy position that the majority of Americans actually want the Hyde Amendment. They don't believe in taxpayer funding of abortion. So he is in opposition of where the mainstream America is on this issue. But he abandoned a 40-plus year position that were his deeply held convictions because he took a 24-hour browbeating from the left. So Joe Biden has already capitulated to their demands. But I disagree with the point Karl Rove was making. I think a candidate can win with policies like Medicare for All. If you look at it on its face, those policy positions are popular.
We'll see.
It's not until you counter the message and you tell Americans what it actually means for them. But a lot of these policy positions are popular on the face.
How about you can sell the headline, Lisa, but once you get into the numbers and explain to people what's going to cost them, the argument changes entirely.
I think those policy positions are garbage, but point being is people like free things. They like the way things sound. And if you go out and you message right, I mean, even Bernie Sanders does a good job at selling garbage.
And let's not forget, Democrats feel strongly. They went with the party choice last time around, and they lost badly. And many feel had they gone with Sanders, they might have pulled it out.
I disagree with this argument. You're looking Bernie Sanders from 3 years ago, who had so much support, and look how he is dropping now 3 years later.
Throw up the latest polling, by the way. Here's the Democratic preference nationally. Biden's still the clear frontrunner, polling 32% in the latest Fox News poll. Sanders, while still in the double digits, falls back behind at 13%, single digits for Warren, Buttigieg, and Harris.
I mean, look, Sanders was unique last time around. He was running against an establishment candidate, and now all of the candidates that are out there have adopted basically his positions, or some of them, if not all of them. And so he's no longer a standout among 23 different candidates, all of whom have some of his policies in mind. So it's a problem for him, certainly. Democrats are going through this. They're going to sort this out right now. The electability issue is still primary to most Democrats. They want to beat Trump. They don't care who it's going to be. That's Joe Biden's biggest strength. But as Lisa pointed out, he comes with a lot of baggage that still has to be litigated, and we're going to see that take place next week in Miami.
Number 10, guys, here's the Orlando Sentinel, today's newspaper. Our endorsement for President 2020, not Donald Trump. You're going to hear that a lot from the mainstream media, Lisa.
I don't really think that these sort of endorsements have a ton of bearing on the way voters vote and head to the polls, right? I think Jeannie's right. The economy is really going to be key. And President Trump is polarizing. So the problem he will face is if the economy gives, I don't know how he wins re-election. As long as the economy is strong, the power of the incumbency is important as well. And then if you have someone like Joe Biden, what is his message? We need to go back to a worse economy back in the past. And Trump is still able to utilize and capitalize off of that outsider advantage if Democrats elect someone like Joe Biden, who is the swamp, who's been in office for decades and who represents the past, not the future.
Biden takes credit for the booming economy, by the way.
He does, but I think there's a reason that the president wants to run against Joe Biden, because he feels that he is backwards looking. He feels that he can make mincemeat of Joe Biden. In a way, Pete Buttigieg and some of these others, I mean, I work with young people all the time. There's energy there, and I think the president is not sure how to run against some of those people.
The point about the economy is it lowers the barrier for some of these voters who maybe don't like Trump's style, but to go in the other direction and choose it. If the economy stays strong, it's going to be harder for them to cross over and vote for Democrats.
So good. We'll have you back.
Thank you. We did it. We won.